Welcome to Over the Garden Fence and another episode of the Mariposa Master Gardener series on how to propagate and care for California native plants. Today we're going to take a look at California Hummingbird Sage, not to be confused with another hummingbird sage which is native to southeastern United States, the Caribbean, Central America, and Mexico, called Texas Hummingbird Sage. It's a completely different salvia species and looks entirely different. This salvia is my absolute favorite native salvia for so many reasons. It's very quick growing, it's very carefree, it has these really interesting flowers that grow in whorls up the flower stalk. They typically bloom from spring to summer, but in my foothill garden at 2,100 feet, it begins to bloom in the winter, providing weeks of garden interest long before anything else is blooming. It's also shade tolerant, or actually prefers shade. It's drought tolerant, and it's low growing, making it perfect for growing under our native California oaks, which are so sensitive to having wet feet any other time of the year than winter. And best of all, it's easy to propagate. Let's go take a closer look. Salvia spathacia is a low-growing evergreen perennial ground cover in the mint family, native to southern and central California from sea level to 2,000 feet. In its native environment, it's found on open or shady slopes in moist oak woodland, chaparral, and coastal sage scrub. Like most members of the mint family, its leaves and flowers have a strong fruity fragrance. And, as the name suggests, it's a magnet for hummingbirds and other pollinators like bees and butterflies that nectar on the pink to reddish flowers. Occasionally, we'll see a sphinx moth enjoying the nectar. Sometimes called pitcher sage, it's an interesting addition to the home garden because of its unusual whorled flowers that grow up a single 12 to 18-inch spike and its pleasant pineapple-like fragrance. It grows in sunset zones 5, 7 through 9, and 14 through 24. It prefers shade to partial shade, especially in hot summer areas, requires little water, and isn't fussy about its soil. It requires little maintenance, but the dead flower spikes can be pruned out in the fall for a neater appearance. As mentioned, the flowers are usually pink to red, but a few cultivars have other colors, such as Avis Keaty, which has yellow flowers, and Confetti, that has both pink and yellow flowers on the same plant. In my introduction, I suggested that California hummingbird sage is very easy to propagate, and that's true, but it's not true when it comes to seeds. Most references suggest that you simply sow the seeds out in the garden in the fall and let nature take its course. But honestly, I've never been able to make that work. You can increase the possibility of germination by applying 3 months of cold stratification. That means taking the seeds and putting them into some kind of moist medium, like a peat moss or vermiculite, and putting them in a Ziploc bag or a glass jar in the refrigerator for 3 months. Occasionally check during those 3 months to ensure that the medium that you've put your seeds in stays moist, and towards the end of 3 months you want to start checking to see if any of the seeds have germinated. If you have a few that have germinated, go ahead and plant the entire batch. If at the end of 3 months you don't have any germination, just go ahead and plant them anyway and hope for the best. If you're going to try to grow hummingbird sage from seed, collect the seeds after the flowers have dropped and the calyxes have dried. Simply peel the calyx away from the seeds and sow the seeds directly outdoors in the fall, or cold treat them over the winter months, which mimics the normal California winters but in a more controlled and consistent environment. While they can be grown from seed, it's so much easier to propagate them by simply digging up the offsets. Offsets are clones that grow from underground rhizomes that spread from the mother plant. For ease, choose offsets that are on the perimeter of the patch, and for better success, choose small plants, as they will be less likely to suffer transplant shock. Dig down under the plant and pop it out, being sure to include some of the attached rhizomes and roots. Transplant the offsets into pots containing standard potting mix. Water them well and place them in a cool, shady location for several months. Transplant them into a permanent location, preferably in the fall when the days have begun to cool but the soil is still warm. When choosing a permanent location, remember that hummingbird sage prefers shade or partial shade and richer soil, but will tolerate most soils. It's fairly drought tolerant, but it does better with occasional summer watering. and it will tolerate regular garden watering. It's deer resistant, and gophers tend to leave it alone. California Hummingbird Sage is a wonderful addition to any garden, and the birds and the bees will thank you for planting it.